dismiss. I'm sorry for my bad attempt of a joke there. And I just one comment I want to make. I know Logan Atkins had to do it today with the new league year starting, I believe, tomorrow. So he had to do it today, otherwise he would have been released and, whatever. So he had to make that retirement announcement today. But it kind of sucks for him. He makes his retirement announcement, and it's really like it never happened because Peyton Manning, the two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, Peyton Manning decided to hang it up, and he holds pretty much every single NFL career record. He's tied with Brett Favre for wins in a career. He tied Brett Favre with the Super Bowl win, and he has all the other records there is to have. So, but Peyton Manning's retiring, and it kind of got me thinking, Troy. Both, Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson retiring. They both drafted in '98. Woodson got the Heisman Trophy over Manning in '97. And the Michigan Wolverines won that national championship in '97 that Peyton Manning could never win. Both go to the NFL together, so it is kind of fitting that they both retire together. And the other thing that kind of got me, thinking back, 18 years ago, Peyton Manning got drafted number 1 overall, and there was all this debate on who should go number 1, Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf. Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf, who should go number 1? And, at the end of the day, 18 years later, it's a no-brainer. That the coach definitely did the right decision. But, Peyton Manning, he's a guy who I don't think there could ever be another Peyton Manning. He really set the stage for a lot of the quarterback play that you see today. He had complete control of the offense. He pretty much ran the practices. He was a player coach, and he had such command of the offense, and it wasn't even funny. And the other thing, I was listening to an interview today on I forget which station it was, but I was listening to an interview that somebody was giving in regards to Peyton Manning, or it might have been yesterday, Sunday. The guy was saying, he interviewed Peyton Manning at the Combine. Before it was a huge media affair that it is now. He interviewed him at the Combine, and then months later, they run it. Excuse me. Months later, they run into each other, and Peyton Manning addresses him by name, and it just kind of shows you just how much attention to detail Peyton Manning had. And I'm sure still has as a person. It's just amazing just how much attention to detail that he did everything with. He had every detail under control. And I don't really think there's ever going to be another player like Peyton Manning. I'm sure you could contribute, Aaron Rodgers today to Peyton Manning, some of the mannerisms that Rodgers has, some of the control that he has of the offense, calling plays at the line, setting formations, calling blocking assignments, all that stuff that Peyton Manning was doing. I'm sure a lot of that, the fact that Aaron Rodgers could do it, is because of Peyton Manning. And, I really enjoyed watching him play all these years. And to me, he's probably, he's the best in my generation. I'm not saying best of all time, because that's obviously going to be debated. It's very hard to categorize people from different generations. But for me, he's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen play. And, I love Brett Favre, but Peyton Manning, like I say, he's just the best quarterback I've ever seen play. And it's going to be, different not seeing him on the sidelines anymore. And the number 18 retires after 18 years in the NFL.
Yeah, and after he retires, the Broncos decide to pony up and give some of Peyton Manning's money to Brock Osweiler. So they're going to stick with Osweiler. But on the Manning trail, Evan, it's one of those things. This is a guy that was, pretty much durable for a number of years in the NFL. And when he got injured in Indianapolis, they decided that they wanted to move on, not sure how he was going to recover from that injury, the neck injury, the spinal injury. And I don't want to say that he was the Peyton Manning of old when he was at Indianapolis chucking the ball around, but I think that's where his intelligence came into play. And I think he realized at times that his body was not keeping up with his mind, and he, even in that state, those Denver Bronco years, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 win, 1 loss, but he had some, good supporting players around him. If you go back and look at the early days of Peyton Manning, there was a number of years where he didn't have much around him, and he was the guy. Everything was on his shoulders. It would have been remarkable to see if he had played in an organization that had some players. But I think, too, that part of it, when you say that, is the argument will then be made, well, Tom Brady had a number of years where he didn't have weapons around him, blah, blah, blah. But today's about Peyton Manning. The countdown to Canton, Evan, is definitely ticking. There's no reason that he's not going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. But I really, look at these last couple of years and winning the 2nd Super Bowl, to really solidify what he did. And I think, for him to retire out a winner, there's not a better way to do that. I mean, a lot of people, he's able to walk away saying, my last game, I won the Super Bowl. But it was, when Peyton Manning was in his prime, Evan, I'll tell you, he was fun to watch. I know the last couple of years had been a struggle, but it was nice to see him. I know a lot of people counted him out after that injury, and he had to miss a whole year. And even Indianapolis kind of did. So we're going to move on. We're going to pick Andrew Luck, and, that's the pick they made. And so he put his roots down in Denver and came out and, ended his career being able to be with an organization that won some games, and it's always nice to see that. There's so many players that retire and have never had the opportunity to play in a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl. He gets to win a Super Bowl and then call it quits on his terms. And I think as an athlete, that's always something you want to do, is to be able to call it quits on your terms. And that's what Peyton Manning did.
And he definitely did. And he gets to ride off in the sunset as a Super Bowl champion. Now, obviously, the defense is the biggest reason why the Broncos won that Super Bowl. But, Manning gets to go out like John Elway did. He gets to go out as Super Bowl champion. And I did put the poll question out there regarding Peyton Manning. Where do you rank Peyton Manning all time among NFL quarterbacks? And 29% say best ever, 21% say top 3, 36% say top 5, and 14% say top 10. So, it's kind of across the board between top 5 and best ever. Top 5 getting 36, best ever getting 29. And I don't know. It's hard for me to say for sure, yeah, he is the best quarterback ever. It's just really hard in sports to judge generations, like today's generation with, let's say, the 1960s, because it was a different game. The NFL is a different game in the 70s than it is today. It's even a different game than it was in the 90s compared to today. But I just look at Peyton Manning, and I know the allegations that came out in regards to his actions in Tennessee, which now it's coming out that the woman might be a little wacko or cuckoo, may not be as, basically it's, she could be, could have been looking for, attention pretty much. And we don't know the full story and everything. We don't. And I do want to share something that a comment that a listener or a fan made on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Red Light Sports Network. I posted an article. On that article, I posted a picture, and I have Peyton Manning is riding off into the sunset as a Super Bowl champ. Not many players have had the opportunity to say that. Where do you think Peyton? Where do you rank Peyton all time? And he comments, he was in total command in his era. Tough to compare apples to oranges, however. I'm sure he would agree. And that was a great point by Jeff. It's hard to compare, the different eras, kind of apples and oranges. And like I said, the game's different today than it was even 10 years ago, really. But I hope Peyton Manning doesn't pull a Brett Favre. I hope he doesn't pull a Favre and, decide he wants to come back and not, everything. But the thing is, I think partially what pushed Peyton Manning out the door in regards to retirement is I don't think there's too many opportunities out there for him. The one that really made a lot of sense was the Houston Texans. They pretty much are a quarterback away with that defense they have. They're pretty much a quarterback away from being a legit Super Bowl contender. But I don't think Peyton Manning wanted to do that to Indianapolis. I don't think I think he was worried about his legacy with the people of Indianapolis. I think he saw what happened with Brett Favre and, how it kind of tarnished his legacy for a little while with the fans in Green Bay. So, but, it was the right time for Peyton Manning to call it a career. And, the one thing I didn't want him to be is, like John Unitas and Joe Namath playing well past when they, playing well past their expiration date and just looking quite poor on the field after, for that final year or two that they're on the field. So, I rank, as I said, Manning the best that I've ever seen play at the quarterback position during, my time on Earth. Tom Brady's up there, Brett Favre's up there, but Peyton Manning, just the total command that he had over every element of his offense, I don't think it can be replicated. I think people do their best to imitate it, but I don't think you can truly replicate it at all. So, but that's really all I have on Peyton.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there, buddy. And I'm looking at the time, and it's another show in the bag. So we will be back at you tomorrow night, Tuesday night. It's a wonderful sports time of the year, Evan. NBA, getting toward playoff time. NHL, they're getting toward their playoff time. Major League Baseball, spring training has started. And I know that we're going to try to go Friday night, talk a little bit about Brewers and some of our expectations. So we're going to start getting back into the baseball talk, folks. It is here, spring training, which is wonderful. Evan and I are avid baseball fans, so we enjoy talking baseball. But hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Red Light Sports is our network account. Follow Evan personally at Evan Witt Sports. And for Evan Witalison, I am Troy Otradovic. Fasten your seatbelts, put your foot on the gas. Hope you enjoy the show tonight. We'll get back at you tomorrow night, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. Have a good night, everyone.